Vernell Laquan Banks Jr. is a kid living in terrible conditions who has an abusive stepfather. He lives in a bad life trying to keep his own and protect his siblings. His father is put in jail and he hasn't seen him in months. His mother gets abused by his stepfather. Quan finds his safe place, which is a playground rocket ship, but then gets taken away from him. Quan also pours his heart out into letters giving sent to Justice, his cousin's best friend. He doesn't have much money and food, so he tries to survive and help his siblings survive. And his stepfather dies, and now he has to cope with an abusive parent dying. A series of events that put Quan in the wrong place at the wrong time led him into jail himself. Life is crazy.
I don't know if Jeffrey is frozen, maybe. Oh, there he is. Jeffrey,
Yeah.
you want to ask the first question, kiddo?
Sure. Okay, question number one. In the beginning of the book, the author describes the main character Quan and his father as his father taken out of the home and arrested. The officer on the scene was going to take Quan and called him a ward of the state, but his father's neighbor cared for Quan instead. As police come on the scene with children, what is a police officer's role when it comes to the care of kids?
There we go. I'm unmuted. As a the role of the police officer on the scene of anything is obviously the safety of involved. Um, Most of us, if not all of us, have a special, I guess, desire to make sure that kids are safe first. I will be honest, I don't think I would ever refer to a child, especially on scene for the first time when it's the situation that described. I apologize. Usually I read the book. I did not have time to read the book. I'm just going off the seat of my pants for you eighth graders. I wouldn't refer to any kid as a ward of the state, especially in an emotional situation like that, right off the bat. My argument would be that there was probably not a lot of involvement with children with that police officer, and his lack of, I guess, empathy towards the child um, hits home with me. And if I were on scene, I would immediately step in, and I would, since it's already been said, I would explain what the ward of the state is, but I would also explain how that he no longer would be the ward of a state. You know, his what was it? His uncle that took care of him. Is that what it said? The uncle? I can't remember.
A
Was it?
friend of his mother's.
Oh, his father. Yes, father's neighbor. Um, Honestly, I don't see that very often, truly. But I would say, a family member can be your guardian, and I would explain ward of the state. Also, I'm a certified juvenile officer, or I was, um, and that also means that we, as certified juvenile officers, have to elevate the safety of the child over everything. That goes for any kind of admission to a crime. Even my job is as a certified juvenile officer is to make sure that that child is safe at all times, regardless, even if they admit to something very detrimental to their future. Did I answer the question okay, Jeffrey?
Oh, yeah. All right, Noah, you want to answer the next question?
Yeah. When Khan is in detention in the detention center, he sees mainly kids of color, and a few white ones he sees rarely stay long. With this, they imply that the arrests and sentences are more due to race. Would you say this is more often than not true?
It's hard to say. I would say no, but at least in so I'm obviously going to um, comment on my experiences. I would say that no, It doesn't. The sentences that are carried out in the judicial system are not based on the race of the individual. With that said, I will comment that a lot of the kids that we have that are in a minority setting, and it doesn't matter the race, if they're in a minority setting. For example, if they're in a predominantly African-American community, and even if they're Caucasian, Hispanic, whatever it may be, a lot of times the situations that they're in aren't similar to situations that kids from Hayworth would be in. They see a lot of different life experiences throughout the course of their young life. I look at, the inner city of Chicago. When you deal with a child from the inner city of Chicago, and we did at Normal, because a lot of them would try to move away from the bad experiences they were having in the inner city of Chicago, and they would move down to Normal. And we dealt with them. There's a definite different attitude in their dealings with the police. They haven't, in a lot of cases, they haven't dealt with this is a small town compared to Chicago, small town police department, and our expectations and also our compassion. I worked with hundreds of officers over the course of my career, and there's always a level of compassion we have for our citizens that I don't think match the inner city police officers. And every time I even dealt with the police departments in Chicago, it was difficult as a police officer in Normal. So it's just they're different circumstances, and unfortunately, it leads to different outcomes in the court system.
All right. Next question. Question number 3. In the book, we see 2 different police officers with differing ranges of experience and qualities that they had to the situation. Castillo, the younger officer, was quick to escalate the situation. What happens when there are police officers who want to handle a situation differently?
That's a great question, and in my career, that is exactly how we see it a lot of times. I will say the turn. I was on Normal PD for 25 years. I would say the turn it was about 6 or 7 years ago when I saw newer officers less likely to want to escalate them, partly because of the requirements now of a police officer. I don't think when I came on, I can assure you that I escalated the situations probably more than I should have. But also as adults, or as we become more adult-ish in the police department, we are always stepping in. If I saw a situation like that happen, and that goes for anybody with experience, we step in, we de-escalate the situation for that officer, and make the situation better for everyone involved. And that's what you would expect, honestly, out of a good police department, is that that intervention when things. There's times where I became heated, where my partner or whoever there was on scene would step in to me and de-escalate the situation. Same goes for another person. If another police officer, if they escalated the situation, I would step in and de-escalate it. We have accountability to each other, and that's the important part, is making sure that you have the accountability.
All right. So now we're going to get to more curiosity-based questions. They're not based on the book. They're just stuff that we wrote down, and we're going to ask you some of them.
Okay.
So here's the first one. What are your experiences as police officer in Normal, Illinois? Have you ever been shot at on the job?
Thankfully, no. And I also like to, I was on the SWAT team for 10 years in the town of Normal, and I served probably close to 150 high-risk arrest warrant situations where The only time we were called out to serve those warrants were because we knew the person inside the house had weapons or had a weapons offense or had threatened weapons. That's the only time we were allowed to be used. And between the years of 99 and 2010, which is about when I stopped being a SWAT officer, I served over 150. And thankfully, I never was shot at. You know what? Let me look quickly at your questions because I don't want to. Okay. It doesn't look, I quickly looked over the questions. With that said, I've never been shot at, but guess how many times I've shot at somebody? What do you think, Jeffrey? How many times?
Well, from what I've seen, you don't usually shoot at someone if they're not shooting at you, so 0?
0. With that said also, how many times do you think I've struck somebody with a baton? 0. I can't say the same about a taser. The taser is a very useful tool, but I would rather go to my hands and my talking mostly, my ability to talk myself out of things or talk myself into things, as opposed to using, I guess, a baton and a gun. I would rather jabber with the person instead of resort. Now, also, I didn't have any problems getting physical with somebody if they decided to get physical with me. So I'm a big guy. You guys can't see that. Palin may remember. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1" and like 265. So I was the offensive defensive line coach. So I fit that big guy stature. So good question, Jeffrey.
I'll read the next one. How many interactions do you have with kids of color normal?
On the police department, we had several. I would say we had more than what the population represents. So, for example, the town normal has about 17%. I think in my internet connection is unstable. So did I lose you guys at all? Just shake your head no. Okay, good. And I would say that probably 30% of 30% of the dealings we had with juveniles was minority related, African American minority related, and as adults though, that was a completely different statistic. It was probably 50-50, 50-50 minority, 50-50 Caucasian. So.
Jeffrey and Noah, if you don't mind, I'm going to butt in just for a second because I'm very curious about, there's an instance where Jeffrey had kind of gotten into this question a little bit more, but Officer Leipold, I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit more to, in the instance that we're seeing 2 police officers. One is a veteran police officer, one is what we might consider an unexperienced or like a rookie police officer, and that rookie is more of that
Rookie.
Yeah, yeah. He's the escalator. He's the, he's making some decisions, as you noted, that only experience can really kind of help shape a little bit more. But the other thing that we get as readers in the book with the rookie or the inexperienced is that there's some undertones of his own personal bias or own personal what we may consider as like racism. He's name calling some of our characters. He's wanting to use the hard R N-word. He's wanting to, can you speak to these things? Because one of the things that I noticed at the beginning of our interview is that you said that you would never call a child a ward of the state. There's some things that we read in fiction that aren't necessarily in reality. And I thought maybe you could speak to like the personal biases of police officers, or like what that looks like, or any type of training or things that exist in reality that kind of speak to those ideas.
I can't absolutely with. So every police department in the county, so McLean County, Normal PD, Bloomington PD, Hayworth PD, all the police departments in the county have a very, very strict policy on not calling people names, specifically the N-word. And I could actually Depending on the circumstances, I could actually be fired, one, or two, I would definitely get time off without pay, which isn't a good thing, obviously, when that's what you're relying on to put food on the plate, the table for your family. As far as bias, our department, and actually, honestly, even all the area departments, we receive training on a regular basis. I would argue probably at least 2, maybe even 3 times a year, at least 2, where it's called racial diversity, it's called racial biases, it's called personal biases. Any kind of that training that comes up, our department is very aggressive in sending us to that kind of training to make sure that we keep our biases in check. It's hard to get over a bias that you have, especially as a new guy, and that's why you rely on the experience of the veteran, the old guy, like somebody like me. We step in, and I had no problem, and most of the officers I worked with, all of the officers I worked with, had no problem stepping in and saying, hey, you're handling it wrong. This is how we need to handle it, and taking it to the next level if need be. If we saw that occurring all the time, none of us had any problems with stepping in. And I think that's where a department like our size is allowed to do that, as opposed to a big department where they have precincts that are 3 times bigger than me, bigger than our department, like Chicago. In my career, 25 years, never once, not one time, saw an instance where an officer was acting based on the race of that individual, ever. Not one time did I hear one of my coworkers use an inappropriate description for somebody. It never happened, and if it did, I think part of the reason why it never happened is because they knew that we would level. We're calling people names. We have actually a polite policy at the normal PD where we can actually get written up and suspended and for not being cordial. Now, that doesn't mean we're always polite, honestly. There's times where you can't be polite, but we can't jump to calling people names, especially based on their ethnicity. That would be totally inappropriate, and it would have zero tolerance. Does that help, Mrs. Bonner?
Very much so. And
Okay.
Jeffrey and Noah, I would say because of time, maybe one more question. And one or two at the very,
answer
very
them quick. I'm a talker.
No, it's totally fine. Just for time's sake, just whichever one. I'm not sure who asked the last question. I think Jeffrey, it's to you. You wanted to pick out one more question, and then that would be our time today.
Let me find a big one. All right. So, question number 10. Is your job harder with all the police criticism and the Black Lives Matter movement and all that stuff going on right now?
Yeah, well, I will tell you that thankfully, and I say that, and this should lead you to what I know, because I'm still best friends with almost everyone I worked with. I am very, very, very fortunate that I retired before all this happened. I have kept in constant contact. Well, I'm supervisor of the SROs, the school resource officers at Unit 5 now. So I keep in constant contact with them. I have one's from Bloomington and 5 are from Normal PD. And yeah, their jobs are extremely difficult now. It makes me sad. It makes me regret leaving because I want to be there to help. But I'm also ecstatic that I don't have to deal with it. When I was on, I gave my business card to hundreds of people that referred to me as a racist, referred to me as, all kinds of derogatory remarks. And my constant response was, here's my business card, which had my work cell phone and my direct line to my office, please come do a ride along with the police department. We would love to have you sit with us for an 8-hour shift and find out what our jobs are like. I will tell you, please, please, please be careful with what you hear in the media about what's happening. I saw statistics the other day that said that 0.0004%, so that's a lot, that's not very often, police dealings happen where an individual is physically harmed or killed. So you're talking, 4/10,000th of a time that when that happens, and it's difficult, and it's gotten worse. I hope that it gets better soon, but I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. Honestly, it's discouraging actually.
All right.
Did that answer your question? Okay.
Are there any other questions that we want to pick from that document? We've got about 2 more minutes left. I have another group that's coming in with another speaker today, but I do want to pause for 2 more minutes. Noah, is there one that maybe you want to pick, or anybody that maybe just kind of wants to jump in either on chat or you can unmute?
I'll ask one more question.
Okay.
Okay, Noah, go ahead.
Number 12, defund the police is a slogan thrown around. What would that defunding mean to you?
So what that defunding would mean to me and every single police department across the country, I don't care regardless, would mean that our training would go first. Because that's the extracurricular money that we spend. I need my bulletproof vest. I need my gun. I need my belt. I need my equipment. And after my equipment, there's really nothing else to spend money on but training. I mean, if you wanted to, I guess, get rid of computers or get rid of, you see where I'm going? The only thing that is discretionary spending in a police department, and in all honesty, most corporations, is training. And the reason they want to defund the police is because they don't think we're getting enough training. Well, I am here to say I 100% promise you that our training would be eliminated if the defunding of police came. 100%. I don't know what a chief of police would say to you. They might go around that question a little bit, but I'm going to tell you the truth, kids. It would be 100%. We would hire less police officers. So the people that want the police would not have the police available to them. The second thing for sure is that we would eliminate training. So.
Okay, Officer Leipold, due to time, oh, sorry. Due to time, we're finished, but thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate hearing your voice. And as far as all the other kids, maybe they might hop on and say, wave thanks to you, possibly. Everybody on here.
I can help, Mrs. Bonner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We appreciate you so much. All right. Thanks,
you guys
everybody.
have a great day.
Have a good one.
Good talking.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning.